Hi everyone, this is Carrie Sacco from the Rittenhouse Square Fine Art Show. I am the outreach coordinator on the board. I'm also the volunteer coordinator. And today for our 5 o'clock club, we're trying something a little different. We are trying an interview format, and I'm very, very excited to welcome our guest today. So this is Katie Samson. She is the Director of Education for a wonderful organization called ArtReach in Philadelphia. They are a nonprofit organization and they provide access to cultural events and opportunities for people who are in an underserved population, people with disabilities, people low income sector. And there's just so much to learn. But first of all, I would like you to welcome Katie.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be with you, Carrie, and those in the webosphere.
I know this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So so we excuse me, unmute it. Okay. So folks, as we are going through with this interview, we encourage questions and comments. And I'd like to give you a little history of how we started our outreach program with our Rittenhouse show. Since we're the longest running show in the country, outdoor show in the country, and we have a 93-year, 94-year tradition in Philadelphia, we feel very close to our neighboring arts organizations in the city, and we wanted to find a way to give back. So a couple of years ago, we started inviting organizations such as ArtReach or small art centers or other programs to come and participate in our show as a vendor. And it's been a really, really rewarding experience. So ArtReach, they were going to be in our June 2020 show. Well, we all know what happened then. Even though we went virtual, they weren't able to join us. So I would just like to bring Katie in here today to talk about the organization and the mission and who you serve and what you do and all that stuff. So take it away.
Well, thank you. It's really great to be with you, and we have a long history in Philadelphia. Our ArtReach was founded in 1986, so prior to the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it was a really kind of amazing way back in the 1980s to reach out to people with disabilities in the health and human service sector, to connect them with opportunities to engage in arts and culture. And the organization has been doing this work now for 35 years. So this year we celebrate our 35th anniversary, which is pretty phenomenal. We are still going strong despite COVID, despite a lot of barriers for people with disabilities, communication barriers, technological barriers, physical barriers. And it's I joined the organization in 2019, and it's been just an incredible privilege to be part of an organization that has such a rich history, that is connecting people with the arts in really unique and inclusive ways. So we partner with very large arts organizations like the Pennsylvania Ballet and the Philadelphia Orchestra, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, but then we also partner with very small organizations that serve in very unique ways. So we work with public gardens, private gardens like Longwood and Chanticleer. We also have been engaging partners that are new to our organization, like Glen Ford and Glen Cairn Museum have just joined our as a partner organization. So we're, even during COVID, we're still bringing people into the fold of ArtReach and engaging them with building their audiences and really creating a more accessible world. And, you know, our goal as an organization is to make Philadelphia the most accessible city in the country. And, you know, I think we're doing it. I'm bragging, but, you know.
That's okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. I had been researching a little bit about your member organizations. And so in order to become a member of ArtReach, what is that process, or what is the criteria for that?
Yeah, it's relatively easy, believe it or not. We try to engage organizations and groups that cater to folks who might be low income, who come from immigrant populations, refugee communities, even people with disabilities is our primary focus. That could be uh, day habilitation programs for adults with intellectual disabilities. We also work with support groups for people with MS or ALS. And we also partner with young teen organizations that are reaching out, like Mighty Writers, who's doing some incredible work in Philadelphia. And the membership is based on a sliding scale. And so that
Okay.
sliding scale is dependent upon your general operating budget of your organization. And those members can get deeply discounted tickets to performing arts events, which unfortunately right now during COVID is not happening. And my heart goes out to our theater and performing arts communities and live arts engagement in general. I think some of that sector is really taking a collective pause. So we're still working with them during this time, which I think is really powerful, that they're reaching out. They want to learn and build their knowledge about access and inclusion at this time. So when they're ready to get in, they're ready. But that could also mean engagement from our members, could also mean like visiting a museum and having a really enhanced experience or a more engaged workshop. So that kind of falls into our Encore program, which we're really proud of. And we have recruited some great teaching artists to be on our roster, some of who actually have disabilities and others who have been with the organization for many years, that currently right now are providing some really great virtual engagement, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous, within perhaps a senior center or a nursing home, to really try to boost up that sort of creative outlet for folks.
Okay. So sorry, I'm trying to see if there's any comments, and I'm having some, I'm trying to look if there's a mute. I'm watching it on my phone, but Sandy, if you see any questions popping up in the chat, we'll stop in, at like 1/4 and take some questions. So, okay, so let's get back to business here. Your Encore program, explain that again.
Yeah, so Encore, I think we recognized this is a program that's been funded by Virginia and Harvey Kimmel for a number of years now, and sort of recognizing the idea that we didn't want people with disabilities in general to have just sort of one-off ephemeral engagement with the arts. We wanted, because the idea is not just to build audiences, but build community and welcome people back in and repeated visits. So in order to do that, it was not only increasing accessible experiences. So that might look like a touch tour for people who are blind or low vision to actually experience a museum exhibition with touch and taste and smell, and getting really some of that literal hands-on engagement. Some of our Encore work has actually been like a really rich series of classes that engage perhaps the intellectual disability population with dancers from the Pennsylvania Ballet, for example, and which culminates in a performance. So Encore can really look many different ways, but the idea is enhanced engagement, more accessibility, and sort of just a greater richness of experience.
So the access card, the PA access card, I was not aware of this before I met with your organization last year. But then when I shared it with my sister, she's like, oh yeah, my kids have that. And she's like, why do I, say, come to Longwood with me? So for everyone listening, why don't you explain a little bit about the PA access card, and then there is also a supplement that if you're outside of the Philadelphia range, you pay another fee and
Yes.
gain access. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So ArtReach recognized that among the sector of people with disabilities, as well as people who are low income, one of the greatest barriers to accessing the arts is the financial obligation, and also the fact that if you might have a physical disability or use a mobility device, like paying a paying a large amount of money to go to a very big museum and walk through those galleries, like some folks who are non-disabled might do that once a year, but for a person with a disability, they're not going to visit, in the 3.5 hour engaged experience. So this
Right.
idea that if we lessen the entry barrier, then we're going to really open up this notion of getting people in the door, because they will then revisit and re-engage. So the idea was anybody in Pennsylvania with a access card, it's also known as Compass or EBT, electronic benefit transfer. Some folks out there listening might know it as food stamps. That's what it usually was referred to, right?
Okay.
And obviously since COVID, we've had a lot more people get on access because of, the unfortunate needs of food scarcity and unemployment in our region and nationally speaking. But for those with an access card, we have, I think currently over 54 arts and cultural partners who have signed on to an agreement to allow anyone with an access card $2 admission for themselves and 3 additional people in their family. So a total of $8 for 4 individuals is a game changer. It's a huge game changer. And not only that, we recognized that we're giving people agency to experience the arts on their own, to not necessarily have to go with a group or on a field trip with their school. So I think that for me personally is where I feel the most value in this program, and the most sort of it hits me at my core. I have a physical disability myself. I'm a quadriplegic. I'm also hard of hearing, and I understand what a lot of these barriers can do for a person that's just saying, well, I don't know if I'm going to be welcome, or I'm not sure if they understand my needs, or what, maybe I'm just coming for the first time. And so part of our process was reaching out to the arts and cultural community and saying, like, we'll come in and do training. We'll talk to you about access. We'll talk to you about cultural accessibility, how to work with people with disabilities, how to engage with them, how to interact, because there are things you should say and things you shouldn't say, right?
Sure.
So kind of breaking down some of that stigma. And in January of 2020, we launched our independent card called the ArtReach Access Card. And that was for folks who, for various reasons, whether it was employment based or special needs trust or however, couldn't qualify for access, like their income was just above the, level of poverty line, right? So we offered up the $75 card that would make it available for anybody to join this access network and have that same $2 admission price. And then eventually, with the growth of that, of the money that ArtReach was bringing in, we were going to kick that back out to the arts and cultural sector as a way for them to do like small micro grants to create more accessibility within their organizations. So we had, I think, signed up over 70 folks for the card, and then March happened last year.
Oh my gosh.
So we're hoping that this summer we can relaunch the ArtReach Access Philly card, as well as Access Philly in general. We have a number of partners that are still working hard with access. Some of our theaters are doing access through ticketing for their virtual programs.
Yeah.
We also have museums that are still accepting access each and every
Oh,
day
good
that
for
they're open
them.
to the
Yeah.
public. And Longwood Gardens, a lot of our garden partners,
Mm,
are still doing access right now, which is like absolutely the best that we can offer for folks to just, keep engaging, getting out there, especially, I think, in a very safe way, as safe as we can be.
sure. I found it fascinating. So is Franklin Institute one of the
Mhm.
organizations
Yes.
too? I think back when we were first talking to Charlie, and he was saying how families can use this as their vacations now, almost, because it doesn't cost like $200 just to get in the door of these organizations, and they're like, okay, I can do this. We can make a day in Philadelphia and explore a couple places, or like you said, go to the public gardens and things like that. It just is really wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
and Charlie's working really hard right now to expand into Delaware, which is very exciting. We're trying to build partnerships and expand the program into Delaware. But
oh,
you're right.
that's
I mean, I
great.
think it's an ongoing working process. And I mean, I think as far as I'm concerned, any city can do this, right? Like we can lead by example, but it's also you get a bunch of partners together to say, we want to break this barrier down, and this is
Right.
sort of the best way to do it. It doesn't take acknowledgement from your state government. Everybody's got that card, and it's an identifier, and it shouldn't be one. Uh, it shouldn't, especially during this time, but alone, like it shouldn't be a card of shame. We want people to feel like they are valued and welcomed
Absolutely.
into these institutions. And so I think you're right, like this idea that come to Philadelphia, if you're from outside the region, and maybe New Jersey or New York or California, and you have a person with a disability in your family, you can
Yeah.
purchase an access card and through ArtReach, and then hopefully in 2022 that'll be like a reality for a lot of folks.
Yeah. So I had a question. I finally was able to find the questions. That's that's to Sandy, who's listening in the wings. Does ArtReach actually teach any art classes, or is your focus purely on accessibility?
So we have a roster of what we call Encore teaching artists that member organizations can request their services to come in and do
Oh, very
workshops
good.
and classes. So
Okay.
I think we have like watercolor, portraits. So we, when I came on board with the organization in 2019, we brought that list down to a manageable side, but we're also like always interested in working with other teaching artists that are out there that really want to engage with people with a disability,
Sure.
especially as well as seniors. We have some incredible dance and movement artists that have been working really hard during COVID and setting up kind of like their own dance studios in their home,
Oh,
and figuring out ways that they can really engage. We have musicians that are on as Encore teaching artists. So it's, it's been obviously a pivot that I think not, we all didn't necessarily learn how to engage through this, I say, keyhole, right? Like,
yeah.
how do you keep people's attention in this little box? But it's been really remarkable. And I'm continuing to engage with educators all across the arts and cultural sector in how we can build up skills and teaching strategies and keep things interesting. So we launched a free collaborative workshop that I host every month called EdZoomcation. And it's a
Okay.
way for anyone all across the country can just jump into a Zoom room, and we just play. We're just like dorky educators that like
Yeah.
want to learn like what are the tools that we can use in Zoom that can bring students together, can bring more understanding about how we can I don't know, like kinesthetic learning. How do we use the body to articulate more? How do we engage maybe non-traditional communicators better? So it's a really fun way, and it's very loose and open, and I think we've brought a lot of just kind of fun engagement into that sphere. And I continue to build up some trainings for other educators and accessible tools for online learning, because it's really new. A lot of us didn't go to school for how to teach this way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So are you feeling like you're becoming a leader in the country, with because Philadelphia is gaining this reputation as an accessible art city? Do you feel people are looking to you and ArtReach now for?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We held our second annual cultural accessibility conference online. It was virtual. And as soon as we opened it up, people from outside Philadelphia started requesting whether or not they could attend. We're like, sure, I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
So we ended up having, I think, over 230 people from 35 states and like 10 countries.
Yeah.
And so after that conference, I was talking to folks in India and
Wow.
Japan and Hawaii and Michigan and Seattle. So it was incredible. And around October, November, we decided that our professional development and learning platform could go international. And so that's where my position has shifted actually into director of education. So most of my work right now is really trying to engage professional development, learning, research in this area to be a place, a resource for people to come, but also for us to collaborate and to learn from others as well. There's plenty of people that have been doing this work for years. I mean, the Kennedy Center has been sort of our beacon, and their accessibility there is phenomenal.
Okay.
What Betty Siegel has done with that organization has been really remarkable. And we sort of, I think when COVID happened and a lot of organizations shut down and were furloughed, we just felt like we had to do something, right?
Oh,
Kind of
sure.
keep, I think Betty said it best, like we can't backslide.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've seen even more advocacy at this time, because a lot of us are at home doing the work and doing the research and doing the learning. And I think even after, and I would say for other minority groups, it's been really a time of collective pause and reflection and advocacy, awareness, from when it comes to Black Lives Matter and, anti-Asian rhetoric that we're seeing, currently. So I think there's been a kind of a time for folks to really engage with this in a way that I'm really proud of, and happy to be the squeaky wheel,
Right.
like I'm happy to tell people they need to do more and be better, and like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions that I'm seeing come through. So Sharon says, it's a wonderful mission you have. Are there ways for individuals to become sponsors by purchasing access cards for others?
Oh, it's a really good question, Sharon. And we were in the process of trying to work on that just when COVID hit. I think it's something that is in the works for sure.
Oh, good.
We have ways in which folks can sponsor some of the things that we have ongoing, including our 35th anniversary celebration, which is happening on April 22nd. So people can, register for the save the date on the internet. They can also, it's $35 admission to the online event. So it's not a heavy lift, but a lot of the funding that goes into this year's fundraiser is really going to help us kind of position ourselves in a really positive way to make those changes. But I
Sure.
think we're recognizing that people would love the opportunity to have a sponsorship like that. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something I would like to see.
Yeah. I think we're going through and listing ArtReach's um, your website, as well as how to give for your 35th anniversary um, fundraiser.
Yeah.
We also have donate little information there too, and it's great because when you go to let me see, what is it going to work? No, I have to hold
Yeah,
up
no,
this
that
way.
worked. That worked. Oh, it's
It
the
did?
other way.
This
There
way?
you go. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you do go to the ArtReach website, it's great because there is a big red donate button up in the top right corner, and that's you know that's just really, really important. So it's listing through here during our interview,
Wonderful.
so people will
Yeah.
see it. I also had another question. How would artists get involved with ArtReach? And that's what I was wondering too about, like, is there training offered, or just, feel free to.
I would actually say that a lot of artist involvement, I think comes from the standpoint of advocacy in perhaps you're exhibiting in a gallery and you have a contract, and maybe your contract is establishing who has access to the gallery, right? Like who can come see not only your opening, but who can come see your exhibits. And if the gallery is not physically accessible, then that's one thing, but how is your work represented on your own website and in other platforms? I would say the biggest thing that artists can do is learning about alternative text, because anytime you put an image up on the internet, a person that is blind or low vision, and keep in mind, low vision is a spectrum. So people who are still blind can see images on the internet, as well as people who are low vision. If you're not putting your information or an image description behind any of that visual information, then you are leaving out a significant portion of the population. So
Oh, sure.
alternative text is really, really important. There's a movement going on right now called Alt Text as Poetry. It was sort of founded by the folks at Indivisible Visibility Disability .org, and it's a really great way to raise awareness and how to create image description. And by image description, it's like just say what you see, right? So
Yeah,
Carrie,
I
like
found that
how would you
fascinating.
describe this
Yeah,
object, right? So like
yeah.
so many artists that I know and love have such great richness of descriptive language, right? Because you all have to write artist statements, and some of you I know hate it, and some of you are really quite good at it, but putting that type of work and effort into how you're describing your work on the internet, I think is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
And so I think I would encourage folks to look into that. As far as ways to get involved, with ArtReach and the work that we do, obviously, much of our involvement and engagement comes from a place working with the arts and cultural sector and organizations that are creating and enhancing programming. So, if you are at a place where you are seeing your work being shown, but it's maybe not in the most welcoming way, or you would like to provide a alternative type of program and adaptation in which you can engage with a community or an organization that you really believe in. We've seen a lot of really great work with some contemporary galleries that artists come in and say, I've created this piece. It has some three-dimensional things to it. I'd like to bring in some members from different communities to be able to touch it and to use it like tactilely. And so they kind of have like exclusive programs. Well, galleries will connect with us and say, hey, an artist is coming in and doing this work, but they also have kind of a mandate that there has to be this other level of engagement. So it's not just folks with, deep pockets that are actually seeing your work, but that you're sort of thinking about it in the line of like social justice and really thinking about, um, uh, was my installation created with everybody in mind? Yeah.
Sure. It is. It's eye-opening. It's humbling. It's just really a whole other way of thinking. Even, when we first met last year to talk about your participation in our 2020 show, just things that you had brought to mind, like, what are there curbs? What are the barriers that you don't think of as a barrier, but look at it in a different, from somebody else's perspective. So it is really eye-opening, and hopefully we'll just keep continuing. I wanted to ask about your stamp program. Is that still in effect for the high
Yeah.
school
So we just launched Stamp in January. There are a list on our website of all of the museums that participate in Stamp, and the idea being that Philadelphia teenagers should have free access to any museum they want to go to in Philadelphia. This was a program that was initiated originally with Virginia and Harvey Kibble funding with the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and Mayor Nutter. And it was a big initiative that was launched, I want to say, in 2014. And we adopted it this fall, and we've taken it on and are super excited about it, because I think right now we're seeing how difficult it is for like urban youth right now who are trying to engage virtually with school. They can't hang out with their friends. What are their outlets? So if they can safely visit a museum for free with a friend, masked and able to engage, like, I think it's pretty tremendous that we can offer that up, even currently right now. And what I was so fascinated by Stamp, because I was very much involved with it in my previous position at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, is because of Stamp, there's been all of these teen councils that have popped up all across these museum sectors. And so not only the fact that we're sort of building audiences for teens, but teens are being part of the programming and development within the institution, sometimes as paid employees. So like Teens for Teens. And so it's something that I think, I know, Charlie's really excited about, also embracing maybe some new curriculum with the school district of Philadelphia that we can engage in such a way that we're building some liaisons within the school sector to encourage teens to go out and visit museums. But I mean, we're talking about like boat building at the Independent Seaport Museum, criminal justice reform at Eastern State. It has been like so exciting to see this work and to understand what impact that can have on a teenager that's living in Philadelphia from now till you think like 20, 30 years from now. I mean, Carrie, do you remember your first field trip? Like your favorite field trip when you were a kid?
Wawa Dairy.
Right. So it like sunk in.
Yeah.
Right? And we currently right now, we just don't, the field trip drive, whether it's, independent schools, public schools, whatever, it's not right now high priority. And it was kind of in a downward slope. And I think if we can build up that engagement, I'm at the heart of a lot of what I do is education, but I think it's, getting folks in for that first time is pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll see it as a place of inspiration, or take solace in it, and it's because that's the great part about the city of Philadelphia, is the amount of museums, and
Yeah,
it's just really incredible. I wonder if the Mutter Museum is in there. That's a crazy
they
place.
are, and they have an incredible like teen engagement.
I
Probably
bet
one
they
of
do.
probably one of the most in the city.
Yeah,
Um,
I bet they do.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there was a time when I was visiting there that we had meetings and they were saying, "Can you come like at a different hour? Because we're just like filled to the brim at that time, and you're not going to be able to see parts of the gallery." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I mean, they're small, so they have to kind of control the comings and goings. But yeah, teens love the Mutter. It's great.
So I was thinking about our pandemic, and can't believe we're coming up on a year of being shut down. And we touched on it a little bit about the jumping into, I think Charlie had said, they're like, people don't have access to computers or the internet, or the museums are shut down or whatever. And that's when he was saying cue ArtReach now, because you guys, I said that you didn't skip a beat. You jumped right into serving, continuing to serve, and even creating even more opportunities. So are there real success stories that some success stories you want to share? Little.
Yeah, I mean, it's uh it's been it's been really rewarding work, and it's a tough time to say that during COVID, because obviously, we've lost so many people, and I think the healthcare sector is just, hopefully having a little bit more breathing room, in the next few months. But to recognize that, I think one of my proudest moments was, 2 or 3 weeks in, we're into late March. And I think we kind of all put our heads together and we're like, people aren't captioning anything on
Oh,
videos, and they're
yeah.
just putting it out there for everybody to see. So like that alone is, and now you think about it today, it's like, who is not watching Netflix without captioning these days? You know,
It
everybody
doesn't have to
turned
be the
on.
Irish shows.
Right. It doesn't have to, even Bridgerton, people are
Yeah.
putting captions on. So, I think recognizing that when you create something with access in mind, it benefits a lot of people, right? And it benefits people. There are people with disabilities out there that don't even know they have them until they're like, oh, captioning, really
Yeah.
cool. Um, so
Yeah.
I think there's like a level of that. And then what we were most proud of was just sort of like reaching out to our communities and learning what their needs were, and hearing from our member liaisons that we need interaction, we need some sort of programs. We're going on a lot of like virtual field trips, but like there's only so many of those you can do in a day, right?
Sure.
So we started kind of with this idea of um, building creating videos, kind of with access in mind. And we're actually going to be doing sort of a case study this winter that we're going to share out at the end of March about how this worked, how this process worked. But we reached out to a lot of arts and cultural partners and we said, hey, can you just tell us a story in like 5 minutes? We embedded it with verbal description. So that means any visual information that was shared on the video was described by the educators. We also recruited deaf talent from New York who were sidelined because of COVID and not able to perform in the theater. So we brought in some deaf talent to do our ASL interpretation in the video screen.
Oh, great.
Which I think was a really positive step there. And then and we embedded the videos with captioning, so it's sort of like these 3 layers of dealing with some of these sensory disabilities that we thought was the most important. And then what's been so interesting is that the ripple effect, I'm not saying that everybody like tuned in and watched Encore at home, our video series, but the rippling effect of that advocacy as far as like, well, are you captioning? No, we're supposed to be captioning. Well, why not? Right. It's like
Yeah.
not that hard and you can do it yourself. And if you're pre-recording something, then like caption it. And then even live theater, and then connecting people with cart captioners and understanding what that was about. So I think, and then really just getting in a Zoom room with these partners and being like, you can do better. And it's not a huge financial lift to do this stuff.
Sure.
There's some low hanging fruit. And so that I think we got to a point where we had some of the Rock School of Dance did their Nutcracker 1776 performance virtually, and they had verbal description, they had captioning, they had ASL interpretation. They also created a PDF interactive guide that people could do at home, and like even children could cut out, interact with as the live performance was happening. They animated the videos at times. So
Oh my
it was
gosh.
just really, really remarkable to see if you like the conversation of inclusion happens early and it happens from inception, then you're just that scaffolding is there. And so I was really proud of that work, and then just seeing how it's been impacted and this kind of like whisper down the lane in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
It's like the story isn't getting changed as it whispers down the lanes, but it's reaching out to other sectors. And I'm going to be speaking on a panel for NEVA, which stands for, well, it's live arts, music, performance venues all across the country. But just the idea that like in this time where we're all just kind of twiddling our thumbs and waiting until we can rip our masks off and make out with the world, like we can still do work, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost at the end of our interview. So I just wanted to tell folks too, we have the website listed for ArtReach all throughout this interview, but go ahead and your 35th anniversary fundraiser is when? Remind us of the.
So it's tickets will launch in a few weeks in mid-March, but the event is April 22nd. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it'll be did you say like a 30-minute presentation?
Yeah, it's about a 30-minute video presentation. I think we might have a watch party or something kind of like this. But I think you can purchase tickets at the $35 level or higher.
Yes.
We're gladly taking sponsorships if you want to put out a message there with our other partnering sponsors. But yeah, just I think I've always been so impressed with the Rittenhouse Fine Art Show and visiting it every year and being sort of a staple of pride within the Philadelphia arts community. And also just sort of the beauty of that moment, it's always such a thing, and such a proud thing that I think, up until COVID, we all sort of took for granted, right? That like we were going to have these things all the time.
Right.
And so, I'm really hoping.
The nice thing is that we went virtual, so we continued our run of shows, so we didn't have to end at 93 years in a row and then start at number 1. But I was going to segue into anyone who's watching. We are taking applications for our September show. The dates for that show are September 17th, 18th, and 19th. And our deadline is March 8th. You got to get these things in early. So March 8th, and you can find the application on our website, which is rittenhousesquareart.com. And you can also go directly to zapplication.org. That's ZAPP. Zapplication.org has a whole list of shows to apply to, but just give it a try. And Katie, I can't thank you enough. This has been just wonderful and eye-opening. I saw a lacrosse friend popping through, Michelle Cavallero, saying hi to both of us. And I'm just telling everyone that Katie and I have a shared love of the game of women's lacrosse. We were both Division III national champions. Can I say that?
Woohoo!
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different colleges, but it's just wonderful how our paths have crossed in the arts world. And
yeah, it's very rare to find, lacrosse jocks that are into art,
I think, being a student athlete and then having discipline and just that kind of mindset to work through things, it was good for me with being in the arts and being an athlete. It just kind of just a schedule, a practice. I practice the craft of the sport and the art and whatever. So,
yeah.
but really great to see you and to talk to you. And I hope we have opened up our audience's eyes to everything wonderful that ArtReach does. And we hope to have some of your artists in our show in the future. And have a great rest of your evening. And
thank you so much. This was such an honor and a privilege to talk to you. And you guys can follow us on ArtReach on Facebook and on Instagram, ArtReach Philly, and reach out to me. My information is on our website, and I'm really proud of this collaboration and our partnership. And
sure.
Yeah, good luck
we
to
have
everybody.
Some that reminds me too, we have some Instagram Q&A sessions. If anyone wants to know about how to apply for our show, we have one on the Rittenhouse Square. It's at Rittenhouse Square Art on Instagram. We have one at 8 o'clock tonight, and then we have one at 3 o'clock on Sunday. So let's sign off.
Okay.
Great to see you.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.